Thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to be here. And wow, for me to finally see in person someone who we have worked so closely with at the Local Moms Network is such a thrill. Thank you for joining us here.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. Thank you for coming.
You have big news for us, so I want to start with an announcement that Kat can make herself about a milestone she reached with this book. Tell us about it.
Just one of the many. No, yeah, so Big Bites hit the New York Times bestseller list yesterday. It's so funny. I say these words and I feel like I'm talking about someone else. But I'm not. I'm talking about my book.
Tears of joy, I'm sure.
Oh, like many tears, yeah.
And we're going to see you soon, because I asked you if you filmed it, because does anything exist if it's not on social media? Yeah. You told someone very special in your life, and I said, oh, did you film when your editor called you? And you said, better than that.
Oh, yeah, I put it on Instagram. Some of you may have seen the FaceTime with my mom. She's in Florida, and she was jumping up and down, and it was really amazing. And I'm like jumping, I like turn into a 7-year-old, which happens from time to time. Yeah, it was really special.
There's a lot of good energy in this room. I feel it. Everyone has this warmth and this, they want to root you on. And I think that's something that's been so evident in your community, and people are shaking their heads. So it's always such a great conversation when people are really putting their love and support into the person I'm speaking to. So I hope you feel that.
I do. I'm starting to cry already. Damn it.
Aww. It's okay. That's
I really
it.
do. I really do. And I think when I say things like, this is our book, like we are doing it, I often, very kindly get messages back like, you're doing it. This is yes, but I'm the voice, but you're the microphone that gets the message out there. And I don't, without all of you, I'm just in my kitchen telling myself how great I am. It's not the same. So this is really us, and my work is very much steered by the feedback I get from all of you and the things that you say that you're struggling with and that you need help with. Even for book 2, which I'm I need to get it out by the holidays next year, so I'm hustling. But I said to my editor, I need the concept to have some flexibility until I start getting feedback from the first Big Bites on what people are making first, what recipes their family are asking for, because this is very much a collaborative effort. And I hope that you feel that. I feel like you do, because so many of you cry right along with me with so many of these videos, and I'm I have people sobbing all over the country. That's amazing. I love that.
Well, let's go back for a minute, because I always, when I see someone successful, I think back to a Lionel Messi quote that says, oh, it only took me 17 years to become an overnight success. And I think people really take for granted the path that got somebody where they are. So logistically, tell us about where you started for your newer fans and how you actually got to this point.
I love that. And I have heard that quote, which my son is obsessed with Messi right now. And I mean, of course, yeah, as a 7-year-old, he goes through these phases where he lives and breathes something, and then he's like, I don't care. And then the next day it's something else. And I'm like, I just bought you all this stuff that was associated with the thing you loved yesterday.
So relatable.
100%. But yes, I'm 42 years old. I started my business, Sprout Media is my S Corp. I started my business in 2020. So it's been almost 4 years, but it feels like it's been decades, because I've been in this industry, I guess you could say, for a long time. I mean, I went to culinary school in 2011 in my late 20s after working in marketing. And since then, I've done various things in food. I mean, I went on to work for the Martha Stewart show. I was a food producer there. One of the people in charge of producing the food segments. I was on live television as well, so I was both in front of the camera and behind the camera. When people ask me, how is it that you're not nervous to be on Good Morning America? I'm like, once you are on live television with Martha Stewart, you will not be scared of anything. Nothing, you will be unshakable. So from there, I went on to work for corporate Martha, and I developed recipes and tested products for our retail lines. And that's part of the reason I love product and I love creating. And that is part of why it's been such a natural thing for me to extend into like product reviews and lifestyle. I am kind of following this Martha Stewart trajectory. I mean, she started in catering and went on to build a lifestyle brand, because to me it is all so interconnected. It's about living well, and I think I'm just trying to do it in a way that is much more authentic to my own voice, which was really an interesting thing to realize about myself when I started my own business. I had created all of this content and products and recipes for someone else. So what was my voice? And it turns out that my voice like uses beans from a can and gets salad dressing in her hair, and, has bloopers in my videos. Like that's who I am. I take really big bites and I drink Diet Coke, and like I eat red licorice by the bag. It's just who I am. And thankfully it really resonates. So it's decidedly, there was a lot of unlearning from the very perfectionistic, highly curated background, but I do have that in me. Like, I'm a serious cook and I'm a serious business person and a serious marketer at my core. So I hope and I think that the combination of I am really just like you. I'm a mom that often like struggles to get their kids to eat something and get dinner on the table, and I just try to break it down in a way that feels fun and easy. What were we talking about?
We're all mesmerized. It doesn't matter where we started. We're following.
Oh,
you said something about lifestyle brand,
yeah.
and I think that's so interesting because you have a vision for yourself, and it's expanding beyond just recipes. But along with that fame and along with the cookbook, I'm sure there are a lot of haters, and that's the biggest compliment, because if you're going to blow up and be successful, there are going to be people who have opinions. So I think it's a testament to who you are, but also a testament to your confidence. So tell me about how you hear and handle whatever people have to say that isn't quite what you're putting out there. Confidence is a big deal, and you wear yours well.
Thank you. I'd like to say it comes naturally, but it did not come naturally. And it's interesting. I was just saying to my therapist a couple of weeks ago how poetic it is, really, that as a reformed people pleaser that grew up feeling like I needed to make sure everybody else was okay so that I could be okay. I can't hurt people's feelings. I need to be polite. Being polite is important. Manners are important. But I know a lot of people that are very polite and have great manners that I wouldn't trust to watch my dog. It doesn't mean that you're actually a good person at your core. And so I think it's so poetic that I have now found myself in a place, or perhaps put myself in a place, to receive daily criticism as someone that is. So it's been an unbelievable exercise for me to get here. And I've learned a couple of things. I knew that when I started putting myself out there, like my brand is very personality forward, right? Because I feel like the only thing unique about what I do is that I'm doing it. Like, people have made salads before me. Even though I like to think that I invented it, I actually did not. And people have used the ingredients I've used. Yes, maybe I'm presenting them in a new way, but the most unique thing about what I'm doing is that I'm doing it. And I am someone that also knows that with anything in my life that I am going to be consistent with, I have to find a way to fall in love with it. I have to find a way to make it fun. And the only way that I was going to really enjoy this kind of work which you can tell if somebody is not enjoying what they're doing. You can tell if someone's not having fun, they're just putting it out there, they're trying to impress you. And I just don't think that that works long term. The only way for me to enjoy it is for me to really be fulfilled by it. And I am someone that likes to go deep. I want to know that, I don't care where your kids are going to camp. Tell me the last time you cried. Why did your mom lose custody of you when you were 4? I want to know. I want to go there. And so, for me, it's all part of the same thing. And it started with me being vulnerable first and telling a little bit about my story and my background and postpartum stuff after having kids and, my journey with, drinking and now not drinking and losing weight and having a healthy relationship with food in a way that wasn't restrictive, all of those things. And that was when I started to get a lot of you to really open up and feel like you were being seen and being heard, which is the way that I do it. I don't even plan my content anymore because you probably noticed, it's Valentine's Day is coming up. I don't even know if I've even talked about it. Everybody else is doing these, even around Christmas. I'm like, well, that came and went. It's supposed to be the busiest time for a food blogger. But I really just kind of respond to all of you, and I feel like we're kind of FaceTiming in a way. And then I'm just all right, call you back. And then the next day I'm like, hey, how are you? How'd your kids sleep? So it just, for me, feels a lot better this way. I think it's a bit of a differentiator. It's a little different than maybe what you see from the other recipe developers and cookbook authors that you follow. But it is not as safe. It is a lot safer to hide behind your work, which is why I totally understand why many accounts, you rarely see their face. You don't know much about them personally. It's a lot safer that way. So when I started to do that, I knew that that would happen. And I think one of the biggest things for me that really taught me a lot was when these lettuce chips that I posted, I know, lettuce gate. It's I posted these lettuce chips and it caused such an uproar with people all over the country. Not really the world. Not really the world, because actually a lot of people from other countries were like, we do this. It's very American to be lettuce, eating disorder, and I'm like, I don't know about that. So I posted that. There was a huge uproar. And I think after I felt all the feelings of it, I was like, well, now I'm really going to post whatever the F I want. Because if I post, I couldn't have even seen that coming. I mean, there was not even a part of me that was like, this is risky, but, romaine lettuce doesn't have that reputation. It does now. Now I know. But I was just like, why even bother? So we were talking about this before. I think what I've learned is that your confidence, your liberation, your joy is going to piss off people that have healing to do and that don't want to look at some stuff within themselves. It is. It doesn't mean that you should be any less bright. It just means that they're not your people. And they probably won't be. And so anybody that is going to unfollow me for things, which I have had, I tend to be controversial. I don't mean to be. But I've had at one point, right before the book, my literary agent was like, maybe just post some safe stuff. And I was like, I do. But I tend to just, I don't know, I trigger a lot of
You push people's
opinions.
buttons.
I do. Yeah, I do. But, it's, for me, it's a part of the conversation. And I think if people are having a conversation, I'm happy. You don't have to agree with me. I just want to get people talking.
Well, you said we could go deep, so we're going to go there.
Let's do it.
And you mentioned your kids, and at the Local Moms Network, we talk about decisions all of the time. And you had a choice to make that didn't really feel like a choice when you became a mother, and you could have been doing your thing as a creative, as you call yourself, but you had to really decide to go in another direction, and with that came sacrifice. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it was definitely a choice that didn't feel like a choice. And I think it's one that, as moms, a lot of us face, especially when you move to the suburbs. where you feel like, okay, I have this career. My career doesn't exist in Fairfield County, Connecticut. So if I'm going to keep working, I'm going to be commuting, which works for some people. But my husband was commuting at the time, and we were about to have a baby. So it was like neither one of us literally would see our kid all week. And that didn't feel okay with me at that time. So I was like, okay, there's not, like, I can't get a job around here, like in my field. And if I get something and then I have full-time childcare, like, what am I going to lose money to go to work? Like, that doesn't make sense. So it is a choice that doesn't feel like a choice. And it's one that I was very fortunate to be able to make, to stay home. But as someone who is a creative, I think being a creative is like having a toddler in your house. Like, you can only keep it under wraps for so long before it starts like causing you a major headache. And that was what happened to me. I remember I had a 1 and a 3-year-old. Caroline was 1 and William was 3 when I started my business in 2020. And about 6 months prior to that, I was at like a neighborhood block party, and I had brought a cake or something. And one of the neighbors, who I didn't know as well, she was like, oh, it's a really good cake. You know, they didn't know much about my background. And one of my friends from the street said, oh yeah, she's really good. She used to work for Martha Stewart. And she said, I'll never forget, she said, you did? And I was like, yeah, I did. And she said, and now you just
raise humans.
And I was like, change diaper. Like, I know what you're thinking. I know. And she didn't mean it to be mean, but it really stayed with me. And it stayed with me in a way where I actually wasn't that insulted. I was more like, which is, honestly, that is like the healthiest thing I have learned to do. Like, just be curious rather than being like, oh, she's trying to devalue. No, she just was having a reaction. And there was a part of me that was kind of like, no, but seriously, I'm not happy. Like, if I was happy, I was pretty rubbish as a stay-at-home mom. I wasn't as patient as I wanted to be. I was resentful. I'm not proud to say this. I was resentful. I didn't see it at the time. Now I do. And so that was something that really kind of woke me up. And then I had the opportunity to join a program on TikTok in the summer of 2020 that I was invited to through a friend of mine who's an actress and a model who had done the program. TikTok was working on changing its image from this like juvenile platform where kids just danced to really being a serious platform where a lot of high caliber educational content and things like that can be offered. And that was really when it started for me. I wasn't even sure what I had to offer anymore. Like, it's been 3 years since I've done this. Do I even know, like, what do I even have to give? But I just was consistent. I kept showing up. I listened to what was resonating with people. And little by little, I started to feel that thing in me wake up again.
And it woke up big.
It sure did.
So I want to
Yeah.
go to the cookbook because I read a poem that you wrote about hungry lady salads and big bites. And I said, this sounds empowerment. This sounds feminist to me. This sounds a lot deeper than romaine lettuce and what people think about it. So tell us about this title and really what your mission is with food.
Yeah, that poem that I wrote, like the Hungry Lady poem, which you'll find in Big Bites in the beginning of the Hungry Lady Salad chapter. I just put that, I wrote that one time because one of the things that I have been criticized for is the big bites of food that I take and that I eat on camera, and I'm pretty unapologetic about it. I am much more like Nigella and Padma Lakshmi than I am Emily Post. Okay, let's just get that straight. So after some of that criticism, I wrote this sort of cheeky poem, and it really was about women like owning our hunger and owning our joy and just rethinking the idea of what like eating like a lady really means. You know, it doesn't have to just mean like pushing food around your plate and like where your napkin is placed. And I think it is like the most feminine, sexy thing in the world to see a woman enjoying a great meal and living in her fullness, living in her wholeness, and feeling really deserving of that pleasure. And it's been a journey, you know, it hasn't always felt so easy, but that was important to me to kind of put out there. And one of the reasons that I ended up going with the publisher that I went with, which was Penguin Random House, is that the marketing person on our initial FaceTime where we were kind of interviewing different publishers, she was like, "Who wrote that poem that you just posted?" And I was like, "Oh, I did." And she was like, "God, you can really write." And I was like, "Thanks." And she said, "That needs to be in the cookbook." And she just like got me. And I could tell that this was a publisher that was going to let me do my thing and have creative control. They discouraged me from coming out with Big Bites in January. Because, as they said, we always discourage cookbooks from coming out in January because January is when diet books come out. Like, that's the focus. And I was like, that's exactly why I want to launch it in January. Like, and they were like, okay, you know, it was risky, you know, and I so appreciate that they let me do something that was risky because I was like, I don't care what other people do. Like, I want to offer something that doesn't really exist for people because, but anyway, so that was, yes, I mean, this is definitely about just looking at healthy food, and I don't even like the word wellness, to be honest. I like greatness. Like, I don't want to just be well. Like, I want to be like great, and I want to feel great, and I want it to feel really inclusive. I want it to feel fun. I want to be focusing on all of the amazing aspects of these recipes that we're going to enjoy because I don't find it very motivating talking about what I shouldn't be eating. Do you? I just also, I mean, in the past, I think what you resist persists a little bit. And I know so many people that are like, whether it's like macros or cutting down on sugar, it's like then all they think about is sugar because they're constantly like, oh, too much sugar, too much sugar. I'm like, how many times have you said the word sugar and you're trying not to eat it? So I just want to shift our focus a little bit, you know, onto joy and like serious recipes that you're going to turn to for many years to come that are going to work for you, that are going to work for your families. And so you're not making 3 different meals because we are not short order cooks.
Well, I'm seeing piles of books, and
Yes.
over there they're getting smaller and smaller, which means we're taking the books home. Tell us
Great.
what you want us to cook first. If you could inspire us with
Yeah.
one of them. If you're going to be the fly on the wall in the kitchen, cooking with us, where do you want us to start?
So I'm going to say the best place to start, and I'm also going off of the feedback I've been getting about where people are starting, which I think you probably want to know. If you're going the baked goods route, the orange ricotta company cake is like a no-brainer. It is very simple to make. People love it. The almond cardamom cake as well. If you want to challenge yourself, the gluten-free bread. That is the most complicated recipe in the book. It is not complicated for a bread recipe, but you're baking bread, okay? This is not Rice Krispie treats. This is a different thing. This is literally like one of the hardest things you can bake. I have tried to make
Channel
it as
your
simple
inner
as
Kat.
possible and get curious. Yes, get curious about it. But the results have been fantastic, which makes me so happy because, as the title says, it took me 3 years to perfect this. By the end, I was like asking Mike, I'm like, what about the crust? He's like, I don't know. It's the same as it was 3 days ago, you know? He must have tried it thousands of times. He wasn't complaining. But, and then as far as if you've got families to feed or not, the chimichurri meatballs are one of my kids' favorite things to eat. They're very simple. You're infusing meatballs with a bunch of flavor because you're taking this really simple, fresh chimichurri sauce and you're just folding half of it into the meatballs. So you're flavoring them from the inside out, and then you have some on the side as well. And the salads, I mean, obviously those are great.
I love that you truly are trying to teach us, because I remember an uproar again
Yeah.
about garlic. And you said,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
throw out the jar. I used jar garlic. And you said not to.
Yeah,
and it wasn't
please.
because you're putting down the jarred garlic. Buy it if you want, but you're a chef. You're going to teach us the right way.
Right.
So tell us about that approach of, you know, I want to make it easy for you, but I'm also a culinary expert here. I'm going
Right.
to give you the goods.
Right. I there's no judgment. If you want to use jarred garlic, if you like the taste of it, please use it. Please use it. I just want to give you, and I think knowledge is power. So I want to give you the option, and I want to set you up to succeed. So I just want to let you know it's not the same, you know? And if you choose to still use jarred garlic, go for it. But like, do you really think that, I mean, I don't use it. You know what I mean? This is literally what I do for a living. So no, I don't use jarred garlic, but anything like that, I just want you to have the information. And if you decide like, I like the taste of this and it is worth it to me, by all means, go for it. I'm going to lay out the information for you, and it is, you know, what you do with it is up to you.
If we really want to impress guests, what is the recipe that you would choose for us to make?
Yeah. Well, there are many. I think it depends on who the guests are. Can you give me any more context around it?
Judgy mom friend coming over. I'm going to blow her away
Judgy mom. Okay.
if we're playing this game.
Okay. So if it's something that you want to feel a little bit impressive, the bagna cauda fish is amazing and so easy. So if you know what bagna cauda is, it's basically an Italian warm olive oil dip that has anchovy. Don't get scared, anchovy. You like anchovies. You just don't know you do, okay? Because anchovies are in a lot of things. They add a ton of salty, delicious flavor.
Salty, briny yumminess.
Yes, exactly. And garlic. And you're basically baking white fish with this mixture. And it's just divine and so easy. It is low effort, high reward, which is what I'm always going for. I'm always going back through my recipes and cutting things out. That's what I spend the most time doing when it comes to editing my stuff, is that I'm like, does it really need to be in 2 bowls? Does it really need to chill in the fridge for this long? Do I really need like ground sage and thyme and basil? Like, can I get away with just these? I'm trying to make it so you're not having to deal with a ton of ingredients, lots of dishes, lots of multiple steps. That's why the bread took me so long, is because I'm like, I want them to be able to wake up on a Sunday morning, mix it at 11 a.m., and eat it for dinner, which is what I do every single weekend. So that is that. But as far as like, I mean, honestly, the chimichurri meatballs just always work. The sticky miso teriyaki pork tenderloin is fantastic as well. The meatloaf, I am on a mission to make meatloaf chic, and I feel like I can do it. This meatloaf is the best meatloaf ever. It has caramelized onions and horseradish. And that is very much my way of cooking, is that I'm, classically trained, classic techniques, and it's just sort of modernizing it and using it in a different way. Like beef and horseradish is a very classic combination. So I was like, what if we took horseradish and put it into meatloaf? And if we're taking out some of the fat from the meatloaf, we want to be adding in moisture and sort of that like unctuous texture. We'll add in some caramelized onions for a bit of sweetness. It just all really works.
That sounds delicious.
Yeah, it is.
Also good for in-laws coming over and you
Yeah,
want to
tons of people are making the
celebrate
meatloaf.
with. Yeah.
I had someone message me and say, my 4-year-old, my 2-year-old, and my 9-year-old cleaned their plates without one single complaint. That has never happened. And I was like,
if that's not a high point, I
I
don't
get
know what
a
is.
lot of messages like that, and I'm like, that is literally what I want to give to you.
I love it.
Yeah, me too.
We have filled all of our time, which
Yes.
means it's now your turn to ask questions. Who would like to stand or yell out a question? Yes.
I love it. I love it. Did you eat them cold, like from the fridge? Oh, fancy. Oh, good. No. That's what I want, because I don't want you to feel like, well, I better eat this entire cake because it'll be dry tomorrow, I want you to feel like you can enjoy it over 3-4 days. I have a dessert every night. You guys know that. So I always have to have something on hand, and that's why I love cakes with oil like that. Good. So glad.
And she wasn't even planted. That's amazing.
I know.
Who else? Yes.
I'm so glad. I'm so
Go
glad.
buy the book. I'm not giving it away.
Oh my God, I love it. Yeah, it's a good one. I often don't, I'm not that interested in overnight oats. I find them soupy and uninteresting. This one is really good because you've got the double dose of coconut from the coconut milk and the toasted coconut on top. And it's just going to, it's just so you're not like, I want you to feel like you can make mindful choices around food. And it's very hard to do that when your hunger hormones are like this. So I'm aiming to just stabilize that for you and help you stabilize that for yourself so that you can just like eat 12 cookies if you want, but eat it because you genuinely want it, not because you're starving because you had a piece of celery for lunch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who else? And
Sure.
Kat, you mentioned your 7-year-old, but tell us about the ages of your kids, and
Yes.
so we know.
So Caroline is 5 and William is 7, and I don't do that. I wish I did. But I feel like my kids are a little bit, they're spoiled in a way because they get a lot of variety because I'm always testing recipes. But sometimes I wish that I repeated things more because like I'll make like a fried egg sandwich and they will be like, that was the best thing you've ever made. And I'm like, why do I bother, So what I tend to do, and people seem to really have a need for breaking down like meal planning for the week. Is that correct? Before I go off on this tangent? Okay. So what I tend to do, I don't do the meal planning in the, like the sad plastic containers of the different compartments. I don't do that. What I do is on a Sunday morning, I sit down with my coffee, I work out what the meals roughly are going to be for the week. And I always start with what I have on hand, what proteins I have in the freezer, what veggies need to be used up, what stuff I have in the pantry. And then I will pick like 2 to 3 recipes that I want to make that week. Gather some cookbooks. It's a really fun time to do that. Stuff you've been saving from online, stuff your family loves. Actually, I will usually start with the recipes I want to try that are different and then fill in with a couple of things that you just know they're going to like. And then that's kind of how I do it. But if you know that your family loves something, like there are ways to piggyback off of that. Like my family loves meatballs. So I will put a lawnmower into a meatball if I can. Like I would put anything into a meatball. I can do it. I can make anything into a meatball. Like I made these meatballs a couple weeks ago, these roasted mushroom and beef meatballs, where half of it was roasted mushrooms, like minced really small, and then beef, and the kids absolutely loved them. So just take that concept, if they love salmon. Do they love salmon, or is it like the glaze that you're using? Probably the glaze. Throw it on some other shit. I'm sorry. Sorry. I feel like a library is like a church. You're not supposed to. No?
We're here
Sorry.
for you. Like I said, do what you want. Yes. Yes.
Can you buy one? Send me your address. I'll send you one. I'm not kidding. I'll talk to you after.
Who says that? That was really nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else need an appliance?
This really just changed the focus of everyone else is like, I didn't know I could do that.
We're going to try to get all our questions in. Go ahead. I saw this hand first.
At least 90. I know. I was being conservative. I know. It's pretty. But, I see these kitchens with, like, all the neutral pans and pots. I'm like, you don't cook, which is fine. But it's like, that's not my brand, right? Like, I function over form always. Always. Not as much as I should. It's just not that fun. I mean, I do on the weekends. I will let them do things like cracking eggs and like salting pasta water. Like my son loves, once your kids find out that you're supposed to salt up here, do you know that you're supposed to salt up here? Yeah, you're supposed to salt up here because that way it disperses all over the food rather than it being concentrated and you don't end up having to use as much salt. So you have much more even seasoning. Once they find that out, it's like Christmas every day. And they will be happy just doing that. I find also a lettuce spinner. Love it because they get to just jam it away, right? Any kind of tool that they can use like that, even like an immersion blender with you or whisking something, cracking eggs. Of course, they love that kind of stuff. But like during the week, no.
Guilt-free. I had seen a hand over here, and then I'll get to you, and you'll be our last question. Yes.
Thanks for being here.
Inspiration for recipes, right? For food?
Just like, oh, I'd like to make this tonight.
Yeah. It tends to be farmers. I will go to Blue Hill Farm once a month and have lunch there by myself. That is a commitment that I made to myself where, like, coming from someone who is a trained chef, if you really, really want to learn about food, don't ask a chef, ask a farmer. They know so much about the kind of food that I'm really interested in and seasonal food. And a lot of what I share and a lot of what is incorporated into my recipes is this part of me that very much wants to be a farmer, but I'm not a farmer. But I have a lot of conversations with them. So I will go to farms. I will go to even people like Joshua McFadden, who does 6 Seasons, which is a fantastic book. He's a farmer. Ian Nauer, who is another farmer. I love his cookbooks. Alice Waters, she is very much ingrained in, sustainable agriculture. Dan Barber, I mean, from Blue Hill Farm. So those places and the farmer's market. I believe that if you want to eat differently and if you want your kids to eat differently, go to the farmer's market. Commit to going to the farmer's market once a week, if you can, even once a month, but I would rather once a week for a couple of months, and it will categorically change you. It really will. It just like through osmosis. You will have conversations with farmers who are passionate about their crops and seasonality and learning about different kinds of mushrooms, and it just changes you. It makes you see food differently.
Great answer.
No, I wish
Thank
we could
you.
just. I could just.
Okay,
blow
our
up
last
all
one,
my
and then you
meetings.
can line up and get your book signed, which is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, cleaning is an important skill to have.
Does your husband do the
Can
dishes?
you teach my husband too, actually? I'll send him over. Let me know what time. Oh, yeah, it's a genetic problem. Mothers are always to blame, aren't they?
I was going to end on that. Who washes the dishes when you're cooking?
Michael usually does, but I will sometimes have to remind him, and he'll cut corners sometimes and be like, oh, I didn't see that. I'm like,
I know you'll all join me in a massive round of applause for Kat. Thank you.